Now it's November 12th, and unfortunately, it's about over. What I mean by it's about over, the rut. All good things must come to an end, and the rut, just like every year, it starts to wind down. And number one here, bucks are wore out. Think about it. They really start becoming active 20th of October, 25th in this northern area, Midwest area, upper Midwest. And they really can't just keep going at it over and over and over again. And that also creates opportunity for you. You know, bucks lose a huge percentage of their body weight during the rut, and of course, as soon as coming to a close, then they need to put the feed bag on, and so that creates opportunity for you. And I look at these last stages of the rut is really cool because you follow food equals does, does equal bucks. I like to look for concentrations of does and we'll get to when the rut's going to end in your area, but I like to, in these latter stages of the rut, look for does. And at the same time, you can tell when it's getting to an end too. Jen and I were out hunting together. She sat with me. She's been my spotter lately. And we were both surprised, weren't we?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
There's one 3-year-old maybe.
yeah, one 3-year-old 8 point and 12 does and fawns because two came right out at the end. We were watching 10 for the last 15, 20 minutes and no other bucks. And the 8 point was just feeding lazily alongside the does. He wasn't pestering them or anything. And there were plenty of mature does out there, yearling does and fawn does. And so to think that there was no buck chasing those and running those. Now this morning I sat and I had a 1.5-year-old buck tending a doe. And she was hiding up in the switchgrass. He would go back and forth like he was herding her and just trying to get that scent and know where she was at. And then she went and got water at the water hole. He went and stood to the side for about 5 minutes, and two other bucks came in, little guys, 1.5-year-olds, and they eventually just melted off. He must have been the dominant one of the three, but that was this morning. They couldn't leave her alone, really pestering her. But things are starting to wind down, and I'm not saying on the 12th of November in southeast Minnesota it's over, but it's getting close. Always have to consider these old bucks are ready for another doe, their last doe of the primary rut, and they're willing to cruise far. And this, to me, in my experience, is some of the biggest fights that happen at this time of the year because they're just these last does that are coming into heat, and there's not as many of them, so those bucks are willing to fight really hard to try to get that last doe. And imagine a big mature buck coming into a new area, and he's traveled from a long ways away. He travels into a new area, maybe a buck that he doesn't even know, but they don't have any type of like sparring partnership where this one knows he's dominant, this one doesn't, and then they have this hot doe right over here on the side, and they just go at it. Some of the most hellacious fights all year will happen during this period. I love to follow does this time of year. Really looking for a good concentration of does. And to me, that starts to lead you to bucks. And it really bridges that gap from end of the rut to post-rut to when there's still a little bit of rutting activity going on to when there's none. You follow that food source, it'll still lead you to the bucks. And that goes back to that opportunity I talked about in the beginning. Those bucks need to replenish that body fat they lost. They need to replenish that energy. Bucks, even in the UP of Michigan, the mortality rate on middle age and older bucks is next to zero. It doesn't happen very long because of winter severity. It doesn't happen very often because of winter severity. I don't know if there's exact measurements, but a fawn can reach up about 5 feet when they stand to get browse. A doe, a mature doe, about 6 feet, and a mature buck about 7 feet. So the older those bucks get, there's not a lot of them, and they get a food supply at their level that other does and fawns cannot reach. Even 1.5-year-old bucks, they're competing with those does. 2.5-year-old buck, they're competing with the does. But those older bucks, they get their own food source, and they can go into the wintertime with a half a tank of energy and still survive because of their overall body size. Where you get into a fawn and they have to go in with a full tank, and even then, some place like the UP of Michigan with winter severity, about half of those fawns die on an annual basis. And on a big winter, really severe winter year, which we've had quite a few, they'll lose up to 90% of fawn mortality. The point is that you can't kill a buck with winter severity. It's very, very rare. However, they still need to replenish that energy. They still are looking for food. They're still fighting for survival. They went out, they survived, but their instinct is to go put the feed bag on. And again, that creates opportunity. You're following does. Mature bucks can come in. You just have one hot doe, and it can really change your season at this time. I look at it like we're on November 12th right now. We see it really slowing down the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. A lot of people, there's people out there, hey, I'm just waiting for it to happen. Well, you probably didn't have mature bucks in your area. Maybe not seeing that rutting sign because in southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, southern Michigan, southern New York, northern Pennsylvania, you're just not seeing that rutting activity. That could extend over in the Dakotas. You're not seeing that rutting activity because you just haven't had those bucks around. The weather's been garbage too. We've had a lot of warm days. We've had a lot of wind lately. Jen and I sat tonight with 20-mile-an-hour winds right in our face for what, until about the last hour? And then it did calm down. But we find during the day it suppresses movement. Does are still getting bred, still going to happen. It's just there's a lot more breeding, and we see it on our cameras. We have a few dozen cameras out. And it's amazing when you have high winds during the day, how it suppresses movement. When you don't, movement is enhanced. When you have bad rain, extreme weather, it suppresses movement. But does are still getting bred. It's just you'll see a lot more nocturnal activity than daylight activity. We're seeing this the 12th to the 18th. By the time we get into the 17th, 18th around here, and that line spreading from the Dakotas, you can even go northern Iowa, northern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, those northern portions of those states, and then you get into northern Pennsylvania, southern New York, of course, southern Michigan, most of the lower half of Michigan, most of Wisconsin, most of Minnesota. You could extend that all the way over into New Hampshire, Vermont, areas like that. You're really starting to see things slow down drastically, changing every day from the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th to the point where at some point in there, bucks are just laying around, trying to conserve energy, trying to build energy, trying to hit that food in the afternoon, putting the feed bag on. And that happens if you have that hot doe, it could create some opportunity. Then you look at when you go further south, that line is pushed back. What was really nice is we used to follow, talk about right here, we used to follow the rut. So we'd have our rut around here. And I can remember it was a Monday before Thanksgiving. We had a giant cold front. It dropped, I believe, 40 degrees. We had 50-mile-an-hour winds. I was trying to put a pop-up the day before gun season up around here, and the pop-up literally blew off the 2-track I was on down into the hollow. It just blew off. I couldn't hold it. Super change in weather. Went down there. It was Monday before Thanksgiving. Shot my target buck on public land in southeast Ohio, where up by us, the rut was over. So it's about a week later down there. A week later in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southern Iowa, northern Missouri. You could stretch that over into Tennessee, West Virginia, Kentucky. You're about a week to 10 days behind. So you start looking at, that'd be more. When you start getting the 24th, 25th in those areas, it's about over. Our area, about 17th, 18th. And not saying there's not a random doe that comes in, but a lot of rutting activity. And you have to consider, too, a lot of gun seasons. So you're talking about rutting activity and your opportunity during the daylight. When you have big high-pressure states like Michigan, Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New York, when you have the high-pressure states, there's a lot of rut suppression taking place just by hunters. And again, I'm not saying the does aren't bred. It's just that when you have hunting pressure out in the woods, and a lot of it, there's going to be a lot of breeding taking place after dark. So you're going to see during the night, a lot of breeding still taking place. It's just going to really suppress the movement during the daylight. So that's where I talk about that bonus, the south. You get into the south area, you don't have winter mortality. You have does that can be breeding and have fawns. We have a really little fawn running around on what we call the north bench. I wouldn't be surprised if it has spots across its back still. I mean, do you think that thing weighs 80 pounds, 70
No, I
pounds?
wanna keep it.
Yeah, we aren't keeping it. But she's always talking about raising a fawn someday. But anyways, the point is that, boy, if we have an extreme weather, if we have extreme winter, we don't get winter mortality around here, but if we get really bad winter and you have a fawn that's born late, say 2 months late, that could spell doom. That's why you go up into an area like the UP in Michigan where there's winter mortality, the rut is it's a very tight window, because fawns that are born too early, they die in the snow. Fawns that are born too late, they don't have enough energy to make it through the winter. So when you go down south, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, you could have multiple ruts taking place 3 or 4 times, more random. I'm really hunting the weather. I hunt the weather anytime, but when you can have random movement at any time, I really want to focus on the weather, those food sources too, the food source movements, and I hope that there's a doe that's going to come into heat down in the south, just like we're waiting this post-rut to happen too. So it's about over. Unfortunately, we wait all year for it to happen. Jen, is that kind of depressing?
Yeah, really depressing.
Yeah, it is. At least you got your Crockett.
Yeah, but now I can't hunt anymore.
You can hunt later.
Hopefully.
We'll get some hunts in. We got your bear. You got a buck in Kentucky. You got a buck in Minnesota. So it's been a good year so far.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah, it's been a great year for you. But bottom line is, enjoy these last few days, because in reality, the rut for 2025, the peak rut is about over. But if you still have tags, the second rut, just follow that rut lockdown phase when a lot of does are coming in around that time. And then you get those fawns coming in, but that's more the end of November, early December. It's a small percentage, but it's a great opportunity. And that's just around the corner. Yeah, I really appreciate you watching all the way to the end. Your followers really appreciate and taking the time. I wanted to mention we have our last minute food plots you can check out at Pure Wildlife Blends. We have a lot of different seed varieties, especially our fall power greens. We have ways to establish clover this time of year, rye, a lot of different goodies. We also have our client visits. We've already started scheduling for this year, December through next August. So there's 5 of us going to client properties. Make sure you check that out. And then finally, our books and web classes. They're great Christmas presents this time of year is when they really start to sell. So really appreciate you watching. Just check out Whitetail Habitat Solutions, or for this food plot seed company, purewildlifeblends.com. Thank you.